Hi everybody, welcome to the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, chairman and co-owner of Peterborough United. 2021, we've had no football, but there's lots of else, or at least we've had no football for our clubs, but plenty of other stuff going on. So how are you doing, Darragh?
Happy New Year, motherfuckers! To you lockdown lovers out there, go fuck yourselves. This is a new year. Fucking, my attitude ain't changed. You're inhumane and you're a bunch of fucking assholes. Sorry, that's hard to get that off my chest.
That saves like the 10-minute rant later, all condensed into 20 seconds right there.
Phil, they're about to lock everyone up again in the UK, and for some bizarre reason, they fucking love it over here, especially the celebs. They love a lockdown in the UK. Fucking wonderful. I'm panicking right about now because obviously I'm here. My family have gone home to Florida. They're living in freedom. You know what I mean? Right about now, I'm locked up, and the only reason I'm here is football business. And if this lockdown means I can't go to games or I can't, do elite football business per se, they call it, I got to get in a fucking airplane and get out of here before they lock me in with everyone else, because it's like, what the fuck?
You're not allowed to go anywhere then, and the States won't have you.
Yeah, well, if they stop airplanes leaving here, or I need a PCR test, which can take 2 days to get before you travel. Like when my family went back, we PCR tested them for the certificate, and they flew back no problem. And but yeah, I don't want to get locked up here with everyone else who seems to love a lockdown in the UK. It's astonishing, really. I mean, all I've read for days is that we need a lockdown. We need to stop kids going to school. I just cannot believe what I'm reading, and when you disagree with that opinion, you're accused of being a COVID denier or a COVID idiot. Let's get a few things straight here. COVID's real. A lot of people have died, unfortunately. COVID's horrible. I would never deny that. I've worn a mask for 10 months. I've stayed away from people in certain age groups for a long time, including my own dad, who I haven't hugged for fucking 11 months. He's getting his vaccine on Wednesday. Nobody's denying that. But anyone with intelligence and fucking brains can study data, can see through the bullshit as well, and can understand and realize that this one size fits all solution they keep using. They did it for 3 months last year. They did it for a month in November. They did another tier system during Christmas. For the last 16 days, I haven't been allowed to go to a restaurant. I haven't been allowed to go anywhere. So the question is, with 50,000 infections a day, like California has been locked up for months, does this work? Because I'm not really seeing any evidence that it works, and that's my frustration with the whole thing. And punishing a whole load of children, millions of children who we know have got like pretty much 0.1% chance of. And yes, I know they can give it to parents and they can give it to teachers and they can give it to I know all of that, but like I said to people on Twitter over the weekend, if you live with someone vulnerable, if you have a child that's vulnerable, then your decision is you don't send your children to school. But if you live in a household like me, where my wife's 45, I'm 44, our kids, we don't hang around with old people, well, I want my children in school. And if you're a teacher over 60, you stay home from school until you're vaccinated, and you get paid to stay home from school. This isn't difficult to sort out, is it?
No, it's interesting what they did here in Florida. Our oldest son, he goes to school right now, and it's kind of a choice. You have the choice: do you send them to school? Do you keep them at home? And if you keep them at home, then there's an infrastructure set up with the teachers who are doing remote schooling. So those who are most vulnerable from a teaching perspective are doing the remote schooling, and those who feel either more comfortable individually or who are less vulnerable from a schooling perspective are the ones that are teaching in person. Kind of a hybrid, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But if you can do that and take those steps, you do protect people. So
Mhm.
you don't want kids infecting older people, and you don't want them infecting grandparents. So I always said, if my dad lived with me right now, I'm fortunate where I could move him out and put him somewhere safe, because I wouldn't give up no disrespect to my dad, he wouldn't want me giving up my children's education and going to school. He said it already to me. He wouldn't do it. And I'm sure lots of people who are 70, 80, and 90 don't want everyone losing their businesses and livelihoods. Do you know what I mean? They should shelter in place. No one wants to say it, but what they really need to do here in the UK, and this is going to upset some people listening, but this is the truth, hard truth. They need to take the percentage of people over 65 who are most vulnerable, and basically they should be the ones who are in lockdown for the next 60 days until they're vaccinated. And they've got to let everyone else get on with it. How do you reduce hospitalizations and mortality? You go after the people that are actually most at risk and most in hospital and most dying. Take care of them, get them vaccinated, and let everyone else get on with things. Because let me tell you, when I leave here, we turn the lights off. The UK now is officially fucked. He's going to go into full lockdown mode tonight.
Is that going to affect football? do you think?
I don't know. No one knows what this clown's going to do or say, or it depends what he wakes up today and he feels, or wakes up tomorrow and changes his mind. I don't know. I guess the one worst thing is you can't plan it for anything, can you? If you own a business, you certainly
Right.
can't plan an opening because you'll be shut down again. Football, I don't know. I've seen some people talk about points per game again, and I'm like, listen, we got time. We can extend the season for League One and League Two into May
Mhm.
and June. Forget the Euros. Most of our players would
Yeah,
still be here.
it doesn't matter for League One and League Two typically, does it?
Yeah, no, that's the chant in the Prem. So I don't know what he's going to do tonight. It's the uncertainty, and I'm one of those fortunate people. I see people like Piers Morgan and a lot of the wealthy brigade who are out there calling for national lockdowns, and they're like me. They're very fortunate where they have money,
Yeah.
can pretty much sit it out, can pretty much sit at home. Not that they do, they still go to work. I can do the same. But I keep saying this. This isn't about me. It's about my children. This is about people who are not me, who own businesses, who work in businesses, who don't get furlough money. So many people, there's going to be a generation so damaged from this. And
Mhm.
I understand no one's saying it's not dangerous for people of a certain age bracket. And yes, I got someone saying to me, yes, that even healthy people get it. You're absolutely right. A very, 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 very small percentage of people. Yes, you're right, but we all know now. And this whole same approach over and over, what's that term, the definition of insanity? When you
Yeah.
do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. Well, for Boris Johnson, see Como, see Newsom. Do you know what I mean? And it's just bonkers. I don't know. But look, the one thing we're going to do in the podcast this year, fuck COVID and talking about COVID and everything else. They may take our freedoms away, but they're not going to take our podcast away. So
It gives us things to talk about, if nothing else.
we're going to do sports and football and everything else. So let's get on with the
All
good
right.
stuff.
So I am just going to ask you one question that's related to this, and then no more questions related to COVID, and that's related to testing. So, I've been reading that all EFL clubs are testing this week. And for a lot of EFL clubs, they haven't tested since October. So that may bring up, at least, I think it's been optional. So some have, some haven't.
We have. We bought a load of instant tests. And I know some chairmen are out there on Twitter saying they're 150 quid but you can get PCR tests now for like 45
Yeah.
quid. You can buy the instant test for like 30, 40 quid.
Hmm.
So if you want to, each round of testing, if you do say staff and players, 30 people, it's about 1,500 quid now.
It was like 4 grand, wasn't it? Something like
Yeah,
that.
it was going to be 7 grand if you did it twice. So now you can actually do it for a lot less, and that's why I'm saying now that now's the time really for the PFA to step in for their members and help out. So we've done it. We've pretty much done testing, not religiously every week, but when we think there's an issue, like when we knew the player who came down with it over Christmas, straight
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
with a rat, and then this week when the players returned, we tested, and again today, like Baz rang me and said that he's already had COVID, so I don't know why they're testing him. So but he was like, lined up against the door and had to do an instant test before he was allowed in today, to the training ground. So yeah, but I guess that a lot of clubs haven't done it, and
Hmm.
I've heard about that, and they're sending their I think they're sending players to the NHS for testing or whatever else. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I've seen that the EFL are talking about a more mandated, regimented
Mm,
testing.
great.
Looking at once or twice a week. I think the question, as always, is who pays for that. You mentioned the PFA. Then some clubs will say, like I know City, Bradford said, "Look, we got to do it. We got to do it. We'll pay for it because we need everyone to be safe." And there's other clubs who are saying, "Hey, we can't afford it. Someone's got to pay for it to happen." So I think that debate is still going to go on.
Yeah, I think, look, as long as we're not like shoehorned into using a certain lab that charges then say three times what everyone else does because they might have contacts. I'm not saying that happened before, but you always get suspicious when you go, well, I can get my PCR testing for like 50 quid and they want me to pay 150. So that doesn't make any sense. So look, it's a lot cheaper now. There's a million companies doing testing. If we have to do it for a couple of months, okay, so be it. We'll do that. I'll put it on my credit card. Look, I don't want any of my players hanging around with anyone over the age of 50 for the next 2 months until this vaccination process finally fucking takes off. Our players have got to be really, really sensible. Christmas is finished now. So a lot of players, most of them live on their own. They shouldn't be living with their parents. So stay away from them, stay in your bubble, stay banging your misses every day, working out in the gym and playing football. That's it. That's all you need to be doing the next couple of months. If we can do that collectively as an industry, we'll pretty much get rid of all the infections we're seeing. That's my opinion anyway. That's what we're going to get back to doing.
So we're recording here on Monday, and we had a couple of pieces of breaking news, I guess. One of them was a Fleetwood. Joey Barton left Fleetwood. I haven't seen the details of the story. I just saw it flash up before we came in to record now. Seemed a bit of a surprise, at least on the outside. I wonder what your take on that one is.
Yeah, obviously I've got agents and contacts in the game, and you hear stuff, and the whole Ched Evans thing was blowing up and whatever else. Look, he's obviously a good manager. He's done pretty well for them. It's been prickly while he's been there with various issues. Andy, Pelly is a good owner. He's a really patient guy. I think he's probably shown a lot of patience. Patience I probably wouldn't have shown. And I've had run-ins with Joey. So Andy's probably made the decision, you know what, I can't be fucking bothered. I've got COVID destroy, hurting my business. I've got everything going on in the world. I don't need aggro at my football club. So it was probably one rook too many, and I'm sure Joey will get work again, and I'm sure Andy will replace him with a good manager. So that's the way it goes. That's football.
And then you have Sriki Dembele, and now fielding calls from the press about his transfer status.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. I'm so out of sync on what day it is because I haven't left the house. Do you know what I mean? It's like I keep thinking today's Sunday, but I think I got on. It was either Friday or Saturday. I woke up. I was pretty much it was Saturday, the day after. It was New Year's Day. It was New Year's Day, Saturday. Anyway,
Uh, yeah, Friday, I think.
I woke up to an email from my football secretary that was basically like, take this as a transfer request. So I got onto it straight away and said, look, let the player know that I'm going to come and have a chat with him on Wednesday. I'll be down at the training ground because the stuff I've got to do regards him and a few other players with regards contracts.
Hmm.
And just the whole fire, as we said before, we want to get promoted if the right offer comes in, that type of thing. And then lo and behold, today, a couple of hours ago, I got a message again from this football secretary saying, oh, the Sun have been on to Phil, our press officer. They're going to break a story about Dembele. Do you want to confirm or deny? And I'm like, for fuck's sake, the agent's doing them no favours at all.
Hmm.
So that's why I put out on Instagram about it. This is football, Phil. Players can, act like they have single digit IQs at times. This really isn't the time. Wonderfully talented player. Yes, clubs are interested in him. Do I think they'll buy him in January? No. I've said this to him all along. It'll be next
Hmm.
summer. Similar to Ivan Tony, the year before Ivan left, I had a conversation with him and his dad because they wanted to look at the offers we had. We had offers, I think, from Barnsley, from a couple of other clubs. And I sat with them and said, guys, now's not the time to leave. If you leave, you might go and get 9, 10 grand a week.
Yeah.
If you stay and win the Golden Boot, I promise you're going to get weighed in and you're going to get a hell of a move.
Hmm.
And now he's on like nearly 38 grand a week
Yeah.
a year later. So my advice in hindsight, when I saw his dad and he moved to Brentford, his dad kind of looked at me and was like, well, you were right all along. And I was like, yeah, because this is my first rodeo. And I've said the same to Dems,
Yeah.
be the best player in League One. Do what you got to do to help us, try and win promotion. And then come the summertime, the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
You will end up having clubs that you've no idea that will come in and will buy you, and you get an unbelievable move. Now is probably not the time. And I
Hmm.
told him that in August, and I told him this again recently. So this is an agent. The timing stinks. I don't know what the player's thinking. He's an innocent lad. He's a nice lad. I know he's got family in Scotland. He probably, needs to move maybe his missus and baby to Peterborough because they don't live in Peterborough. But my sixth sense tells me he's going to have to get his head down and play till the end of the season
Yeah.
because I don't think people have the funds available right now to do a move like that. Now somebody might come out of left field.
Hmm.
There's a couple of clubs have already tried it on and taken the piss, of course. A couple of weeks ago, thrown out crappy figures. I'm not one to be bullied. I've said to you before, there's no better deal maker outside the Premier League. So if it always makes me chuckle when agents want to play games with me. You get in that arena with me, you're gonna fucking lose. There's only
Hmm.
one winner. I've been doing this for 15 years. So in fact, I emailed another agent this morning about another player, another young player, and just said, this isn't my first rodeo, dickhead. Yeah,
Hmm.
don't play games with me because you will fucking lose, and your player will lose. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, a distracted player who's not focused
Yeah.
will end up losing form, falling out of the team, and
Yeah.
that's how a player loses.
Yeah.
And
And
that's not
everybody
what you want.
loses. I mean, you lose, the player
Everyone
loses.
loses.
Yeah.
Everyone loses. We're on TV on Saturday.
Yeah.
Dembele, the best thing Dembele can do this week is train really hard, make sure he's in the team, make sure he goes out on Saturday and scores a hat trick and tells the Premier League, I'm ready to play at the highest level.
Hmm.
That's what he should be doing this week, not having his fucking agent. You know what I mean? Like contacting us about transfer requests or having stuff leaked to the press. That's how you do it. So he's got plenty of time to play at the top. He's got plenty of time to earn loads of money. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my message to him is grow the fuck up. Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
grow up. You know what I mean? Grow up, simple as. He's got a great family. His parents are wonderful. His sister's a lawyer. His brother's a footballer at Celtic.
Yeah.
I'm hoping his parents maybe step in here and tell him to get his head down and focus on what's ahead of him.
Now, when you're working with a player or when your manager is working with a player, are you able to kind of differentiate the noise of an agent versus an individual as a player, or the agent's representing the player, they kind of come together as a package?
My gaffer's really experienced and really good at it. Whenever there's an agent like causing mayhem and whatever else, he kind of what would the right word be with the player? He has tunnel vision that it's about the squad, the performance, the players, the training, the games. So even if a player's agent's playing up or the player can be a bit irritable or whatever else, the manager just wants to get the best out of them. So we had it with a young player, and the agent's trying to say, "Oh, we're going to run his contract down. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And then agents can be very clever. They play on words. Oh, the club's not looking after the player. Oh, the player feels under pressure. My manager's answer to that with this particular player was he starts playing him and he's playing him in games. And the player's, on merit because he was training hard. And that's who my manager is. Just because you've got an agent playing up or a player might be, you know, looking at wanting to get a move or whatever else, if he trains hard and works hard, the gaffer will pick him. He would never not pick a player based on a player's behavior off the pitch or an agent's behavior off the pitch. So that's credit to my manager.
So, just from a mechanics perspective, when somebody puts in a transfer request, I mean, what does that look like? I have visions of like the fax coming across saying, or the letter coming across saying, "I want a
Uh,
transfer."
let me try and find it here in my Dropbox, and I'll read it out to you. Hard Truth exclusive, right? So, check. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. There we go. I'm not confirming this is Dembele. I'm just a
Mhm.
typical transfer request. This is
Yep.
okay. Further to my playing contract, it is a regret that I requested transfer from the club. Please treat this as my formal notice. I ask my request is looked upon favourably, and I hope my reasons for the request are understood. There is no reasons for the for the request in here. Thanks for the assistance in advance.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it. It's addressed to me, by the way.
And
Um,
and then when you receive that, is there some this is where I think, you think about it as you're, an outsider and you're playing championship manager or football manager or something, and, he goes on the transfer list and it's something that's circulated to all of the clubs. Like, what happens when someone
well,
when that's accepted, let's say?
yeah, I haven't accepted it.
No,
So
but just if you accepted a transfer request.
so if it's accepted, he gets put on the list. And then his circular is sent on the list to all clubs in the Prem and Championship and whatever else. Look, he's not going to a League One club. So you circle to those and probably a few European clubs and Scottish clubs and whatever. But I haven't accepted it. Like I said, I went back and said, look, I want to have a conversation on Wednesday. So I've got a bit of housekeeping to do. I've got to meet some parents of players on Wednesday,
Mhm.
if I'm allowed to, obviously, with all the lockdown stuff going on. So January for me, it's why I stay behind and my family go home. And I spend 5 weeks on my own because I want to get contracts sorted out. If we have to sell a player, I work on
Yeah.
that. If we have to recruit a player, I work on that. I'm doing a lot of data, statistic, and analytical stuff, all day today. And then I like to get around the coaches, the youth, the management, and whatever, and spend a couple of days with them talking about the rest of the season. So that's really I just got Joe Ward to sign a new contract,
Yeah.
and he was a player only had 6 months left. He's an asset to the football club, one of the best players in League One, and suddenly he could go for free. Do you know what I mean? So I was really happy to get that done. But in fairness, you got a player and an agent who the player's got a young baby. I think he's got another one on the way.
Mhm.
He's very settled. The agent's quite, pragmatic about it, not greedy. Knows there's COVID out there, and it's good security for his player.
Like win-win.
Yeah, and that probably went on for about 6 months. Talking about it in the summer, talking about it again as we went into the winter, and then at Christmas, I was like, you know what, he's obviously out with an operation. Be a good time to give him a bit of a lift. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean, and that was that. So my answer to the transfer request, yeah, like I said, I haven't given it. So let's see how I get on with a player on Wednesday. 12 rounds.
I think you've got the track record though of when people sign up for contract extensions, for example, of letting them go when the opportunity comes along and it's right for everybody.
We don't hold players to ransom. We never
Yeah.
have. You get agents out there who think running contracts down is the best way to go. Nobody usually comes out any better. You are better off your player from a League One club going for big money than going on a free.
Mhm.
If a player goes on a free, they don't get paid, in my opinion. Not from what I've seen from League One. And this is I've had this battle with an agent this morning who's like, "Oh, I'm going to let a player run a contract down for 18 months," and I'm like, "You're out of your fucking mind. If Peterborough sell a player for 6, 7, 8 million, that player is going to get 20, 30 grand plus a week. If that player walks out and spends all summer trying to move on a free, he'll probably get 8, 9, 10 grand a week.
Yeah.
So the agent's a fucking moron, and the player, as usual, is robotic and listening to the agent instead of listening to me, who's done this a million times. And you have to trust me. If you play for me, you have to trust me.
Hmm.
I'm not going to fuck with your career, and I'm not going to fuck with the football club's asset. I'm going to do what's best for all parties, and we're going to get there in the end of perfect compromise. And I've done that. Like I've said, I can list on the wall all the players have gone on to be millionaires
Yeah.
from us onwards. So again, I don't need to promote that as a fact.
So what are you expecting from the window this time? January windows typically seem to be a seller's market. Desperate clubs are buying, whether it's to try and stave off relegation or to cement places in playoffs or whatever. Because of COVID and everything and the salary cap now, is that changing? Is January going to be a buyer's market?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Clubs need money, so it's going to be tough out there. Right now we have. What are we looking to do? We're looking to move a few young players on loan.
Hmm.
We actually had Bradford in for one of our players. I can't go into that. And I can't even remember who the fucking player was now. But anyway, it was Bradford, a couple of other clubs. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Have been on about loaning a couple of our youngsters out, which would be good moves for them.
Yeah.
So right now, it's more about getting those 3 or 4 players on the fringe of the squad who might. But in saying that, I said to the manager the other day, "Look, we're going to have 35 fucking games here in a minute
Yeah.
to play in 4 months." Because he was complaining he had like 25 players at the training ground this week, and I'm like, "You might need all 25 of those players."
You're suddenly down to like 18, 19, and then you get some injuries. And I mean, that's what happened with us. You can't buy a win.
You're playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and say they add another game in the week, and you're playing 4 games. And like you said there, you've only got 16, 17 man. We already have like 5 or 6 youngsters make up the 24-man squad.
Hmm.
You kill kids like that if you had to play them 4 times a week. So I just said to the gaffer, just be very, very careful, on anything we need to do. So we're not looking to be overly busy. Look, if someone comes in and knocks my socks off with an offer for the belly, he'll go
Yeah.
and he'll get replaced. That's how it works. If he doesn't go, I don't see us bringing anyone in.
Now, somebody you did let go was a 13-year-old, Sam Proctor to Villa.
Had no choice. Had no choice.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about because, I saw a tweet actually from your co-owner, Jason Neal,
Mm.
saying that you get offers pretty regularly for academy players. And, most of the times he responds with a picture of his shredder to those offers. So, when you do let a kid go who is so young, like what's the determining factor between letting somebody go and saying, hey, we want to keep them in our academy?
As it stands, when you have a player under a certain age, it's at 13, you can't offer them a pre-pro contract.
Hmm.
So you have very little wiggle room when it comes to the rules. Someone can come in and take him, it goes to a tribunal, and there's a whole table on what you get. You get 75 grand, you get X amount on a contract, you get X amount when they make an appearance. You end up making maybe 200 grand
Yeah.
plus the sell on. So what we do is if we feel we're going to lose a 12 or a 13-year-old, Barry gets onto it and starts negotiating with multiple clubs. Man City, Villa, Chelsea. There was 4 or 5 clubs in from the Premier League.
Hmm.
We ended up getting 6 figures, plus we got a lot more locked in. Now, in reverse to that, we have a 15-year-old in the under 18 team who every club in the Premier League is trying to buy, and they think they can nick him for like 200 grand. We've had, I think it's Brighton. We've had who else? Wolves, because he's Portuguese, this kid, so
Hmm.
naturally Wolves were at the table. We've had, probably 4 clubs put in offers like that. But what they didn't realize is he's already signed a pre-pro contract because Darragh doesn't mess around
Hmm.
when he turns 17, which allows us then to set a price what we want.
Okay.
So no one can steal him anymore.
Yeah.
So then we had like one of them even talk about 500,000, and we were like, no. Now, in fairness to Jason, my partner, a big part of what he wants to do is he loves the academy. He doesn't want to lose players like that.
Hmm.
With a 15, 16-year-old knocking goals in for the under 18s, he's got a bigger chance of getting into our first team squad than, say, a 12, 13-year-old goalkeeper who, very talented kid, called up by the England. But you don't know in 5 years' time what's going to happen with his life. So, we didn't have it. If we'd a higher category, we would have got more money. If we were maybe in the championship, the top end, maybe the kid and his parents wouldn't have gone to Aston Villa.
Yeah.
So all of those things. Now, in fairness, the parents were brilliant about it. They took the time. He went and visited the various clubs. They made sure it was the right move. Some parents can be about greed and money. It wasn't that for these parents. This was about, his development as a player.
Hmm.
But like Jason's right, we do shred a lot of offers. Last year, I think we sold two 11-year-olds or 12-year-olds for like 200 grand. Baz, I called, Baz, he was like a child trafficker. Do you know what I mean? He was selling so many teenage kids. Sorry, it's an inappropriate joke in 2021. Nah, fuck wokeism. So, yeah, I do joke about that. But Jason's right. We don't want to keep losing the talent because we're trying to be a club that every year is two or three of these talents getting into our first team squad. So in 6 years' time, over half of the squad are all homegrown.
Yeah.
And if you keep selling 13 and 14-year-old talented players, if you can't keep them, it's going to be very difficult to do that.
Yeah. No, you mentioned about, as you get a little bit older, you can, the path to the first team is a little bit more, not proven, but you can be a little bit more confident. Like the risk factor goes down the older they get. And I think one of the examples,
Absolutely.
you have Ronnie Edwards right now, who's what, 17-year-old, who in the halfway ratings that Alan Swan did in the Peterborough Telegraph actually rated him as gave him an A. I think the highest rating he gave, and I'm sure that's just based on expectations versus what the reality was. But, when you get to that age, you've got a pathway for them to come through to the first team.
Well, if anyone follows me on social media, I was talking about Franz Beckenbauer in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was like, who the hell's he talking about? And obviously, that's unfair, me putting that pressure on the kid. But I said to the manager, and I said to my partners in the summer when myself and Baz brought the kid in, this kid could play in our first team tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that was in the summer. And no word of a lie, if he played the rest of the season, I wouldn't even share. I would not be worried whatsoever. He is the most composed. Liverpool need a centre back. Let me tell you right now, that kid could go and play tonight against Southampton.
Yeah.
He wouldn't sweat. I've never seen anything like him as a defender because we've had attackers come through the youth team, we've had midfielders come through. I've never seen a centre half like this kid, never. And if he played the next 10 games for us, I would back this up. I would hazard a guess. The top 10 clubs in the Premier League would put official bids in by the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't, I'd retire from football. That's how good this kid is. And what I love about this kid, he is not greedy, not agent driven. He is football driven. His
Yeah.
dad, his family, his brother plays for West Ham Academy. They are football driven. I love that in a young player. And nothing phases him. And he's missed this week because of COVID. So he's out for 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, he'd probably be playing on
Mm-hmm.
Saturday in front of the TV cameras. But yeah, I've seen some of our fans today talk about us buying centre halves in. I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. We don't need a centre half. You know what I mean? Like this kid is as good as it can be. So Swanee's right about the A, not to build up too much hype. Thought he was a bit harsh in some of the scores he put in there, considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
Thought he could have given out better grades, and he probably got a few of them spot on. So, but we've played 18 games, haven't we? For fuck's sake! I mean, we're not even halfway.
You're fifth in the league. So, while you want to be first or second in the league.
Miracle, Phil. When we closed down, I said to everyone, we're going to be fucking 9th or 10th by the time we get back. And here we are, 4 weeks later or whatever it is. To be still fifth is an absolute. I can't believe it. I'm just astonished. Anyway, we're going to get up that league.
And you're in the playoffs on a points per game basis as well, where you weren't a couple of weeks ago, and you haven't even played a game.
Listen, I never want to hear the words points per game basis ever fucking again. Even if we were 10 points clear, yeah, and I'll stick by this because everyone said I would not vote for points per game.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we were 10 points clear, because I have integrity and I believe football clubs should play football. So the vote to not play football, you will never get from me. Ever.
Well, on that note, let's go into a short break. We've got some questions to come back with. We do actually have on the docket, we talked about the economics of a football club. We did our part 1 a couple of weeks ago. We do plan on doing that in a week or two. We just want to make sure that we aren't rushing some of the questions that we've got over the break. So we'll be back in a moment with some questions from listeners. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Hard Truth podcast. And I do have some listener questions. Before we go there, just wanted a quick update for folks on the business podcasting community that we're looking to build. So it's something we've been working on over the holidays. We're really excited to finally start getting the wheel moving. But just any thoughts you had to share with the listeners on what we're building?
Yeah, look, a lot of people are sat at home at the moment. They're going to be sat at home for a bit longer with the lockdown that's about to happen. So hardtruthbusiness.com is going to launch. And if you haven't got a job and you want to learn how to ace a job interview, you want to keep a job, or if you're in a job and you want to get promoted, you want to learn how to get promoted. If you're thinking of opening a business when all this madness has ended and there will be plenty of opportunities, great. If you're thinking about changing your life, your mindset, if you want to be a winner, If you want to have the mindset that's got me to where I am, and listen, whether people like me or dislike me, they have to respect what I've done in my life. And that's documented. Don't believe everything you read on Wikipedia. But, I've done some good things in my life. And if you want to know about that, and if you want to hear my thoughts and my mindset on the process of how I became successful and made myself into who I am today, and have all the nice things around me and the success and the wealth and the happiness and all that comes with it, you need to sign up for what we're going to do. It's going to be a subscription, type thing. You're going to pay a few quid a month for it, but you're going to get plenty of podcasts like what I've just spoken about careers, about life, about wealth, about opening businesses, about how to deal with setbacks. Because I'm one of those. I've never really believed in failure. There's no such word as failure, only setbacks, and how to mount comebacks. If you want to get into the nitty gritty of that and life and whatever else, you need to sign up for this, because this is going to be well worth whatever we charge, whether it's going to be 10 quid, 20 quid, or whatever it is a month. You're going to get access to these episodes. You're going to get invited to a call every month, and a Zoom call, where we're going to talk to our members, take questions on what's going on in their life. What do they need advice? You're going to get direct advice from me. If that's of value to you, you need to email.
Well, you can now go. We have a sign up form, hardtruthbusiness.com, and that will take you to a form. Pop in your name and your email address. That'll put you on the email list. And then as soon as we're ready to share more information, we're going to be doing that. And we have captured your information.
You will get by the end of January this launching.
Yeah.
So if you want to be part of the early sign-ups to this and enjoy it and experience it and think this will make a difference to what you do in life, put your balls out there, or whether you have balls or not, and get signed up,
Yeah.
because this is for female and male. It doesn't matter who you are. My best closers who work for me in my sales businesses over the years, funny enough, were females. And I'll go into that as well when we talk about it. So each week we're going to talk about different variants of the business life. And we talk a little bit about it on the podcast, and we're going to preview some of it on these podcasts until the actual official Hard Truth Business launches. So it's exciting. Go to hardtruthbusiness.com, register your interest, and let's get you rocking and rolling, because this is something that could help a lot of people.
All right. I'm looking forward to getting started. So we have some questions. Let's jump straight into the questions. First one from Simon. Simon says, "As both a posh fan but keeps an eye on the results of Man United, were there any plans, given Darren's obvious connections with the club, to loan more players when Sir Alex was in charge?"
No, to be fair, I'd be a fool if I didn't say part of you was thinking that when I was hiring the one of the greatest managers that
Mhm.
ever lived, his son. I was thinking, great, we're going to get some of the talent from United, but it actually went the other way.
Yeah.
It was really difficult to get loan players, and when we did get them, they were trying to charge loan fees. There was no favoritism.
No friends and family discount.
No, and I used to fight with a gaffer over it in the early days, and in the end, we gave up doing it. It was just like, we had a few in. They were okay, some of them. Some worked, some didn't. But there was no great advantage. And you know what? In fairness to the gaffer, I'm sure he's sick of that comparison, because his dad's a one-off. And, being in the shadow of someone, and I'm not saying he is, because the greatest respect I can give Darren is, you know, being the son of someone famous usually doesn't go that well for someone who follows in their footsteps. And he's a very successful manager in his own right, Darren. He's won multiple promotions at multiple clubs. He's managed in the championship, and he's not finished. So I know his dad's very proud of him. I know they're very close, and he plays a big part in his life. So but for me, no favors from Man United.
And the second kind of part of that question was, Simon said, "I hear a lot about clubs that buy players but then loan them back. How do commercials of that kind of arrangement work? Does the club who sold the player then pay the wages, or is there a pass through? Kind of what typically happens from a sale and loan back?"
So we did that. I think I want to say, and someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong. We sold Ryan Bennett to Norwich years ago, and part of the deal was, because we were trying to stay in the championship, that he had to stay for a couple of months,
Mhm.
to play games for us and help us. And my memory's terrible nowadays. But the deal was that they would pay his wages.
Yeah.
We got him back on loan, and then the player leaves and moves on. So that's usually the way it works. You don't really pay any wages. It's part of the transfer negotiation. You
Yeah.
get a freebie.
Is it something that is, you say it's been a while since you've done it. Is it a normal kind of topic of conversation, or is it really there has to be something exceptional for that situation to work?
Yeah, I mean, when a club was trying to buy Ivan Toney last January, I was very strong on we didn't want to sell him. And if
Mhm.
we did sell him, we would have to have him back till the end of the season, because he was a big part of us getting promoted. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of like the norm. It doesn't happen all the time. If we buy a player from lower league, and we've tried to do it a couple of times, we've said, look, you can keep the player till the end of the season. We have no problem with that at all, unless we feel that player is needed right now to come in and do the job for us. Do you know what I mean? So it just depends on the two parties.
Now I have a question from it's actually not a name, but we've got Maverick 32078.
Hey, where's Goose?
Um, so he or she said that they heard our conversation about that you once had a deal in place to buy Orlando City a few
Hmm,
years back. In the
yeah.
States, without much of a player transfer market or promotion relegation, it seems like the path to profitability isn't there. What makes a US based team attractive?
I think it's an emerging industry still,
Mhm.
emerging market. I think in 10 years' time, when I see my sister, with the money she spends, her son going to soccer practice and soccer academies, and, CR7 have an academy in Orlando, there's a
Mhm.
few others. I still think in the next 10 years, soccer is going to be football, we call it, is going to be mega. And there's going to be a lot more money in the game. And I think eventually the MLS have to get their shit together and sort out a pyramid like we have
Yeah.
in the UK. Because at the moment it's the USL, and then you have to buy a license to get into the MLS. If they sorted a pyramid out and got the romanticism involved that we have in the UK, that industry and that market will blow people's minds.
Mhm.
Because they're so used to watching yesterday, I'm watching the NFL, and you got a team going 0 for 16. And the fans are just like, oh, for fuck's sake, okay, fire the coach. We start again next
Yeah.
season. We can go for the Super Bowl. What about the excitement of, oh, hang on, that team now is fighting to stay in the Premier League? It's fighting to stay in the top tier. I think that excitement will be great for TV ratings. It will be great for competitiveness. It will be great for the market, the industry, open up the transfer market a bit more, make US players come into Europe a bit easier, maybe with work permits. So I just have a belief if I was buying multiple clubs, I would buy a USL club.
Yeah.
I would love to buy like a Las Vegas
Mhm.
club and take it to the MLS.
Yeah.
Great spot, a great place to go and do work for a week, every month.
You're not wrong. We love going to Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah, do you think that the MLS clubs would vote for something like that? Or they like their monopoly?
Yeah, they're a bit close-shopped, and because they put so much value on the license for the MLS and the money they've spent, unless you're David Beckham and you're getting it for free. But last time I think the license was 60, $70 million. So a lot of those owners will probably vote against it. But if
Mhm.
they look past their noses and be clever, the value of their clubs will only increase if they have a more competitive environment the clubs are in. You should never be afraid of success or failure.
Yeah.
And by making it more competitive, where there could be the possibility of a relegation in there, will lead to bigger TV deals, more money, and more value on your clubs. There's so much wrong with soccer, as they call it in America, and I think it could be fixed tomorrow.
Yeah. You think of the opportunity for clubs around the country that aren't in the position where they have an MLS license. And, there's some big clubs I think of in Detroit, which is where I used to live. There's Detroit City, which is a club that was really a community based club from the ground up. They've not been able to get an MLS club. Well, you start to put in infrastructure that allows them the opportunity to grow, multiply that across all the states, then suddenly you have a national game.
And you're right, and that's why I talk about Vegas. Vegas doesn't have an MLS club.
Yeah.
Another one was I think New Orleans. Again, down at, these are places, and you think New York ended up with three clubs.
Right.
California, too many. So the saturation was incorrect and wrong. Instead of going right, we're going to limit it, say, to two to every major state in America. So most cities are represented. There are, like you just said there, there's some massive, massive cities and places in America that don't have an MLS club. It's madness.
Mhm. Now I got a question from this question actually came in early in December, and it's been kind of events of
Hang on, hang on. This
uh,
isn't from Iceman, is it?
it isn't. It's from Mike Ryan. Um, so Mike actually is talking about Jack Byrne from Shamrock, and he was talking about Jack Byrne before he announced that he was going to leave, which he did, I think, at the weekend. And he was asking if you'd ever had a look at Jack. Was talking about his successes and not so good times at Wigan, but there's a lot of hype in Ireland in relation to him, and he just wondered, is he as good as people make out he is?
Yeah, I did a deal to sign him.
Yeah.
He was one that passed my gem tracker, so we went in hard. We did a deal with David Sharp at Wigan at the time.
Hmm.
We were going to take him with just a sell on. He'd been on loan at Oldham. We spoke to his agent and the player. The player was very Manchester located and based,
Yeah.
and the negotiation went on too long for my liking, where the player wanted X amount of money, didn't really fancy it because of the location, intimated that he would probably prefer to go to Oldham than us because of the location. We'd already heard things about him. He'd been at Man City, he'd been elsewhere, and players as talented as that sometimes, maybe when they're younger, they're a bit more high maintenance. And in the end, we took a pass, and I didn't want to get in an auction between us and Oldham. Um, he went to Oldham. It didn't work out in the second spell, I believe. Went to Ireland. An amazing young talent, really talented young player. To be fair to the boy, he's had to go backwards to go forwards. He's gone over to Ireland, Shamrock Rovers,
Yeah.
player of the season. He's got capped by Ireland. He's probably grown up. He's matured,
Mhm.
and he's probably ready now. And he'll probably play at a higher level. So I don't know where he's going. I think he's on a free.
Yeah.
But I'm sure his agents will get him a championship move or a League One move. Very good player.
It's interesting, one of the things, and this may just be paper talk, I saw was, him going over to Cyprus with Mick McCarthy,
Oh,
which, seemed random given what you just said about him, wanting to stay around Manchester too, so maybe that's just paper talk.
but maybe Philly's grown up. Maybe I don't know at the time if his family were based in Manchester. I know he's Irish, but I don't know if his family, his parents were Manchester based.
Mhm.
I know he'd been in their academy. It's tough for young Irish people. Sometimes they get homesick quickly. I understand why he didn't want to come all the way to Peterborough. And look, it's going to work out for him. He's a talented young boy. He's probably going to get a good move. I don't think he needs to go to Cyprus to get a good move. I'm sure he could do better.
Yeah. Well, I got one last question, which is from Harvey, who's an Ipswich Town supporter. My question is on Ipswich Town and the thoughts of Darragh regarding our current situation. The large majority of Town fans, I think, are pretty fed up of Paul Lambert, 2 years into the job and a pretty low win percentage. But Marcus Evans refuses to budge and actually gave him a 5-year contract. Is there a point where the owner has to listen to the fans?
I was gutted because our Ipswich game was called off, obviously, 2 weeks ago or whenever. Marcus was actually coming to the game. So I've spoke to Marcus on the phone loads of times. It was going to be the first time I've met Marcus. So, in the flesh, I'm not going to second guess Marcus. Marcus has put 60, 70 million into the club. I understand fans of clubs like Sunderland and Ipswich demand success. They're massive clubs. Same with Portsmouth. They aren't League One clubs. So I get a manager will probably get less patience than, say, a manager at Peterborough United from a fan base. That's just football.
Yeah.
Paul Lambert seems like a great guy. Again, I don't want to be judgmental on his failures or his successes. It was a tough job
Mhm.
to go into, and who knows? It could still end in promotion. It's another massive club in League One.
Well, the hard truth, and this is something I said when we had the pre-season conversations with the Bolton fans, is that, when you get relegated into a league, you deserve to be in that league, unfortunately, and there's nobody has a right to get promoted just because of the size of the club. And, I felt that painfully a couple of times in the last 10 years or so of us getting relegated down to League Two. Just because we're Bradford and we have a lot of people going to the games doesn't mean that you're good enough to get promoted.
And that's true. That's very true. It's very valid.
It's hard as a fan to come to terms with that, because you look around you and you go to, and again, not being disrespectful, but you go to a Crawley or you go to a Morecambe, and those teams are doing well this year in League Two, but you go there and you think, these surroundings, I'm not used to these surroundings, but that's where you are, and it's harder to get out of that than you might think.
Fan bases don't play. It's players that play. And if there's mismanagement at any big club and they end up in League Two or League One, they're there for a reason.
Yep.
But the one thing I do know about football is the way it works in cycles. They're not there for very long. And usually clubs, particularly forget about COVID, but normal times, when you've got a fan base of 20, 25,000, you're on your way back up.
Mhm.
Look, Bradford's a real anomaly for me. Do you know what I mean? They should have been in the championship
Yeah.
years ago. But if you look at your Coventries
Yeah.
on their way back up, if you look at your Portsmouth on their way back up, who else could you throw in there? Huddersfield. When I
Mhm.
bought Peterborough, they were down near the bottom of League One, hit the Premier
Yep.
League. So if you go through those clubs, usually in the cycle, and they get themselves back up again. And there's no doubt in my mind, a club like Ipswich, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Bradford, I've said it for a long time,
Yeah.
the right management, the right ownership, and whatever else, it'll happen because those fan base, that's just history. That's just what happens. They end up going back again. They get life, breathed into them, and they have another run.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'll keep clinging to that hope as a Bradford fan. But, I may feel a little bit different come next Saturday again, but we'll see. It'll
Who are you playing?
We got Scunthorpe away, so it's
Okay,
yeah.
they're in a good run of form now. Scunthorpe, they're doing
Yeah,
all
they're
right.
doing all right. They're still down there with us, but
Yeah,
it's actually been really interesting at the bottom of League Two. So, where none of us could get points for anything, I think most of the teams down there have been on runs the last
yeah.
3 or 4 weeks.
I saw Stevenage the other day
Mhm.
as well. Topped someone 3-1, didn't they?
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
Southend have won a few on the bounce.
yeah.
it's the gap is getting a lot closer between everybody, you know. So we'll see.
It's do you find every league seems to be really competitive because of this COVID thing?
Yeah.
It's like the Premier League's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? And our league's ridiculous in League One. League Two, like you said there, Bradford 5 wins away from maybe hitting the playoffs. It's just I don't know because of the lack of preseason, the
Mhm.
congestion of fixtures, the lack of transfers, but it just seems to be a lot more competitive
Yeah,
lately.
I think that maybe there's a squad sizes are smaller, and then put smaller squad sizes with the games coming thick and fast. You get some injuries, it really decimates the squad. They come back, you start, and I think you got a lot of teams just trying to survive, and especially in League Two, it's like you don't want to be the bottom two. We just want to not be the bottom two in League Two, and we just want to survive. So there's a lot of very similar quality teams right now.
A hard truth, your mindset's so wrong.
Yeah,
Bradford City can never have a mindset about surviving in the bottom of League Two.
absolutely. But I think there's a lot of clubs that are like that.
No, but you can never have that mindset. Even if you're bottom of League Two, your mindset's got to be, yeah, look, we're going to run and win 10 games in
Hmm.
the right way. Do you know what I mean? But like hearing a Bradford fan talk about surviving in League Two and not going into
Yeah,
non-league,
it's
that is
crazy.
an eye opener.
Yeah.
That's hard truth right there.
Mhm.
You know, but what let's talk about Chelsea. Did anyone watch
Yeah.
that horror show
I
yesterday?
didn't, but I read about it.
What have I said about this guy? I told you, he's got the worst record of all the Abramovich managers. It's amazing, really, because I'm always one of them that I want to see more English managers than foreign. But any foreign manager who had the record Lampard has at Chelsea, they've already been fired,
Mhm.
already gone. So he's actually getting more time, but also he's got a lot of friends in the press,
Yeah.
and that they do talk about him favorably. And but if you watch like with the recruits and what they've done, terrible.
The knives are out now, aren't they?
They don't need to be out. It's just he's not good at his
Yeah.
job. When you're not good at your job, of course, people are going to come for you. Look, I hope he does well because I want to see English managers do well, but I just don't think he's a very good manager.
Yeah, it's something that I saw actually in relation to Stuart McCall and him being sacked, by us is sometimes, your heroes don't make good managers just because what they were as a player. And it's really hard for you to come to terms with that sometimes because you have the dream that they're going to be the one that takes you to new heights. And, it seems right now that it's not happening for Frank Lampard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've watched their last 3 games, and they're like, yeah, clueless. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure what the right shape is for them. He changes the strikers like you change underwear. Do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, there's trouble there. If he loses another 2 games, I reckon he'd be gone. So, but they have a squad that could win 10 in a row.
And you talk about, the leagues being closer. In the Premier League, you've got 4 points separating the top six, which is great for,
Yeah.
given how it's probably not great as a Liverpool fan at the moment, but it's great for everybody else.
To be fair, I'm going to watch them tonight, but they have been shit the last 2 games. They've been really poor against Newcastle and West Brom. And now I've always kind of you think they need to get a defender in, but I don't know about Fenway. The deals they were doing in the summer paying over time, and now they're talking about maybe they don't sign a defender. And I mean, fuck me, we've got one fit, proper, and that's Fabinho, a midfielder at the back. If you want to win a league title, they're going to need more than that. And tonight's going to be an eye opener because they've been poor the last 2 games. If they don't go out and beat Southampton tonight, for me, Man City win the title. Look, we've been spoilt with a league title last year and the Champions League the year before. So I'll cut Jurgen a bit of slack. He's very supportive of his owners. He's come out and he said, "Oh, COVID, money, and we probably won't sign a defender." So he says all the right things. But if Fenway were really wanted to go back to back with two double with a title and beat Man United, which could turn out to be really exciting, they're going to need to get him some help because otherwise they're down to the bare fucking bones defensively. I mean, it's getting embarrassing now. Do you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, so it'll be interesting. We'll see tonight.
Yeah, and you had Leeds continue to, play their football and get beaten while doing it.
Yeah, but you know what? I said this at the start of the season. I said I think Leeds will be top 10. At the moment, I think they're 12th. And you know what? Yes, there's a lot of people want to slate Bielsa for, getting battered by Spurs, getting battered by Man United, whatever else. But you know what? That football is, they looked out of energy against Tottenham the other day, in fairness. But I think they'd won the previous game before that, West Brom, to beat by 5.
Mhm.
So it's going to be like that up and down. It takes some time to adjust to the Premier League. Premier League is a hell of a league. So I would not be critical of Leeds at all.
Yeah, would you rather see football like that or be scrapping every week like West Brom and it's be pragmatic football and, that's good for a season if you stay up, but it gets boring pretty quickly.
I tell you what, it gets is exhausting, where you're hanging on every year with the same battle.
Stoke did it for years. They had a few good years where they finished top 10. The last couple of years became exhausting trying to hang in there. They went down. Sunderland, the same. Every year seemed to be a crisis. Another manager, Sam, coming in to save them. West Ham seem to have booked that trend where they've been struggling the last few years. They finally went a bit more domestic. They brought in good English players, and now they seem to have cracked it with Moisey. So, yeah, what would you rather watch? Would you rather watch your team go out and try and play, or try and grind out a 0-0 at Anfield or a 1-1 at Anfield with 10 players behind the ball? I know what I'd
Yeah,
prefer.
it's an entertainment business at the end of the day.
Correct, Mondo. That's exactly what it is.
So on that note, let's wrap up today's pod. We're going to be back next week, which is going to be January the 13th, next Wednesday. If you enjoy the show and you haven't yet, we would love for you to rate and review it on iTunes as well. That just makes a big difference for us. So
Definitely. Happy New Year, everyone.
until next week, any questions, continue to send those over to contact@hardtruthfootball.com or go to the website, fill in the contact form, which is hardtruthfootball.com/contact. And we'd love to hear from you.
Sounds good, guys. All the best.
All right. Until next week, take care, everybody.